Toji Fushiguro is one of the most praised characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, especially when you consider the fact that he's alive for so little of the story. While he's nowhere near a good person, Toji is so interesting and likable because of what he represents. As I talked about in my Geto video, the hidden inventory arc is all about the question of where does sorcery go? It's not a sustainable practice, and Toji is the main reason that this question is asked, in more ways than one. So today, I just wanted to take a look at Toji's character throughout his short character arc. To analyze Toji, I think we should start chronologically. Technically, the earliest point we see Toji isn't yet animated, but don't worry, this isn't a spoiler. All we see is a young member of the Zenin clan remarking that a member with no cursed energy must look pathetic before running into the hulking figure of Toji. The reason this is important to mention, despite it being a seemingly inconsequential scene, is that it reveals how the Zenin clan perceived Toji versus how he actually was. He was a failure and he was never allowed to forget it. Much like Maki, he was constantly abused and outcast. However, we see that in this scene, Naoya, despite being someone who believes having no cursed energy would make someone useless, is taken aback by how intimidating and powerful Toji looks. The reason the clan hated Toji so much is that he was a symbol of how their way of thinking was wrong. The Zenin clan believes in strong bloodlines and cursed techniques, however Toji has neither. Despite that, he is still probably the strongest member to ever come out of the family, except maybe one, but no manga spoilers in this video. The next time we see Toji after this is in Hidden Inventory. Toji is living a complete deadbeat life. He spends his free time gambling and drinking with shady characters. Even after he bumps into a guy, spilling all his food, he doesn't apologize and even antagonizes the guy. While it may seem like Toji lives a nice life, I think there's actually a great sadness in the way he operates at this point. Before we get there though, Shiyu Kong commissions Toji to kill Riko Amanai, the newest vessel for Tengen. The reason Toji was specifically sought out for this was that he made a name for himself as an assassin, going by the Sorcerer Killer. This nickname came from the fact that Toji would indiscriminately kill incredibly powerful sorcerers for hire. This is an important thing to remember about him. In his mind, he only kills sorcerers to pay the bills, nothing else. Toji is pretty absent from Hidden Inventory after his introduction. He more so plays in the background, hiring other sorcerers to try to take Riko. Obviously, they all fail, with none of them being strong enough to take down Gojo and Geto. Toji's plan seemingly fails, as Gojo and Geto enter the protective barrier of Jujutsu High and are therefore safe to take Riko to Tengen. Just as the audience forgets about Toji, he strikes. This is where we learn about the history of Gojo and Toji. When Gojo was young, Toji went to see him, attempting to quietly watch behind him. Gojo ends up seeing him, and the seemingly innocuous event really impacts Toji. He remarks that it was the only time that anyone detected him behind them. This led to Toji's long plan of weakening Gojo with other sorcerers before finally striking. This immediately made Toji an awesome character for me. Not only does this show an association with Gojo, but it also shows how incredibly intelligent he is. The ensuing fight with Gojo goes the extra mile to show this. Hidden Inventory really never showed Gojo struggling in a fight, and I'd go as far as to say that the show up to this point rarely showed Gojo struggling. But Toji was something we hadn't seen before. He wields cursed tools to damage Gojo and uses his extreme physical strength to overpower him, eventually finishing him off by stabbing him up and down. As he says himself,
"My body has always been special."
Toji is truly terrifying because in a world of magic powers, he's literally just a guy, and yet somehow he stands over the strongest sorcerer of all time. Toji doesn't stop there though, brutally murdering Riko before proceeding to fight Geto. Similarly to Gojo, the fight with Geto shows how powerful Toji is, with him effortlessly slicing the boy up. Toji leaves him alive as he doesn't know what would happen to Geto's cursed spirits. He does say something important though, noting that despite Gojo and Geto's gifts at birth, they couldn't kill a monkey like him. This quote shows the true hatred that Toji had for Jujutsu. Toji refers to himself as a monkey here because that's how he believes Gojo and Geto see him. And while perhaps in the future Geto would see it that way, in the present they both hold no grudges against non-sorcerers. Despite that, he talks this way because he believes that all powerful sorcerers think the way that the Zenins did. To him, all sorcerers are the same, people who only long for strength above those weaker than them. He quite literally killed 3 teenagers and feels no remorse for it. To him, they represent the pinnacle of the world he hated, and especially regarding Gojo, Toji must have been pretty relieved to have the only person who could detect him gone. It's in this moment that we get our first real reference to Megumi, with Toji remembering him due to his name. Toji goes on to hand over Riko's body, with him affirming that he doesn't believe in what the cult says at all, and rather just killed the girl for the money. As Toji is walking home, he sees something that he never could have guessed he'd see. The boy he brought down with his own hands, the one he saw completely dead in a pool of his own blood lying on the floor, was now standing right in front of him with no visible injuries. Toji had pushed Gojo to learn reverse curse technique. Despite the monster that stood in front of him, Toji stood his ground. He uses the inverted spear of heaven on a chain to reach Gojo in midair, but nothing could stop the honored one. As Toji remarks, he's high. The fight ends just as quickly as it started, as Gojo unleashes Hollow Purple, an ability that even Toji didn't know about. Toji remarks that he had already lost the moment he challenged Gojo here. The truth is that Toji had been killing people for money, but there's a reason he went after many sorcerers. He hated them. Toji had an extreme disdain for all sorcerers, especially those who held up the current system of Jujutsu. You can see it in the way he slaughters Gojo and Geto. There's a level of enjoyment to it. On top of that, I'd argue that Toji really did not need to kill either of them. Toji is incredibly quick and strong. He probably could have gone away with Riko's body just fine, but he chose to fight Geto because he wants to. He represents the complete opposite of both Gojo and Geto. He's the opposite of Gojo because he kills those weaker than him. In a way, Gojo lives for other people. He risks his life to save both Yuji and Yuta from execution, as well as repeatedly putting his life on the line for his other students. Gojo is the strongest, and because of that, he feels an inherent duty to do what's right. Toji is the opposite. He uses his strength to tower over others and to serve his own purposes. He has no shame in killing others, even children, and he seems happy to do it. I don't even know if I have to explain why Toji is the opposite of Geto.
Monkeys. Monkeys. Filthy monkey. I hate those monkeys.
Jokes aside, Geto believes the world would be better if only sorcerers lived in it. This is a belief he develops as a result of the encounter with Toji. This is the complete antithesis of Toji, who is literally named the Sorcerer Killer. Similarly to Geto, this hatred comes from a place of him witnessing the horrific actions that the current sorcery world can bring on. From the day he was born, he was outcast and abused in the biggest sorcery clan that existed. Now, here's where I want to bring something up that the anime-only viewers may not know. After leaving the Zenin clan, Toji met Megumi's mother, and she sort of put Toji on the right path. The love he had for her overwhelmed his hate, which led him to quit his job as an assassin. Mama Guro unfortunately died when Megumi was born, however, which led Toji back down his path of hatred. What I find so interesting about Toji, though, is that it takes him until this moment to admit that he has these feelings of distaste towards sorcery. He justified what he did in his mind by saying it was for money. But then, why take so much pride in killing Gojo and Geto? Why only target sorcerers? The truth is, Toji had something to prove to himself. He wanted to prove that he was above a world that cast him away, that he was stronger than those who called him weak. And just as he says, those thoughts are exactly why he lost. Toji wanted to prove that he was stronger than the strongest sorcerer of the time. There was no reason to battle Gojo here. He could have run. He wasn't being paid, but he fought him because of what it represented. If he could kill Gojo here, he proved that he was above the Jujutsu world. But of course, he couldn't overcome the awakened Gojo. Ironically, Toji is what led Gojo to become unbeatable. He forced a sort of metamorphosis out of him, and that growth is what left Toji dead. Just before he dies, he remembers Megumi again, telling Gojo that he has a child who will be sold to the Zenin clan. This is a way that people often mischaracterize Toji. While he is absolutely a terrible person and a terrible father, he cares a lot about Megumi. He sold him to the Zenins because he believed Megumi would have a better life there. He even arranged for him to become head of the clan. I think Megumi represented the love that he had for his wife, and so he didn't want the boy to turn out like him. The reason he tells Gojo about it here is that he can no longer assure that everything goes smoothly. With Toji out of the picture, now Bito or any other member of the Zenin clan could pull something shady. So he tells the strongest person he knows, someone who he knows will always fight for the weak. This is also the reason Toji never massacred the entire clan, even though he absolutely could have. He believed leaving them alive was better for his son. Toji dies unsatisfied and upset. He's angry that he lived so much of his life in denial. He pretended for so long that he was doing what he was doing just to pay the bills, but in reality, his entire life was still being indirectly dictated by the Zenin clan. With Toji seemingly out of the picture, Gojo raises Megumi and Sumiki. Now, this should have been the end of the story, but some 10 years later, a familiar face appears on a rooftop in Shibuya. Granny Ogami uses her seance technique to give her grandson the ability of another sorcerer, choosing Toji Fushiguro. However, likely due to Toji having no cursed energy, she inadvertently just revived him from the dead. The awakened Toji begins fighting on pure instinct, going after the strongest being in the area. The ensuing fight with Dagon shows that Toji is not at all limited by the body he's in. He crushes Dagon with relative ease, allowing the group to escape the cursed spirit's domain. Although Toji is set to target the strongest sorcerer there, he goes after Megumi for some reason, leading to an excellent battle. What's great is that Megumi knows he's screwed, and so this fight just consists of him trying to run, but he still can't escape Toji. The man is a machine. Just as it seems like all hope is lost, Toji suddenly stops attacking. He remembers his son Megumi, and this memory snaps him out of his killer state. He realizes that he's fighting the very son he told Gojo to protect. Toji looks at his teenage son in front of him, the memory of his wife, and the only good thing he contributed to the world. He simply asks Megumi one question: what his name is. Megumi replies Fushiguro, to which Toji remarks that Megumi isn't going by Zenin. He simply replies, "Good for you," before killing himself. The reason he does this is to prevent his vessel from potentially going haywire again and killing Megumi. While I said that in his first death Toji died unsatisfied, I believe that here he was content with his place in the world. While he had believed that Megumi would be good with the Zenin clan, knowing that Gojo had taken care of him and seeing him reach his full potential must have been— okay, I'm sorry, I can't take the word potential seriously anymore. Knowing that Gojo had taken good care of him and seeing him reach his full capability made Toji realize that he had made his debt up to Mamaguro. Their son was raised to be strong and happy, but more importantly, he's fighting for the right cause. Megumi could have easily become a hardcore Zenin member, and he likely would have if not for Toji talking to Gojo. This wouldn't have been an inherently bad life for Megumi. As Toji said, he wouldn't have been abused. However, Toji can die in peace because his son can live on as a better version of himself. Up until the moment of his death, Toji could never shake off his deep-seated hatred of the Jujutsu world. He lived in denial of this hatred, justifying it by saying that he was simply doing it to make a living, when in reality, he killed sorcerers because it was his way at getting back at a world that wronged him. That need for revenge consumed him, and he had lost the only person who ever made him seek anything else. Despite that, Toji is shown to have truly grown through his sacrifice. The old Toji would be okay with slaughtering all the sorcerers around him, but seeing Megumi grown up, using the last name of the only person he ever loved, makes Toji lose his hate. He's brought back to how he felt with his wife, and with her, he feels at peace. Toji first dies because he's too stubborn to let his grudge against sorcery, and therefore Gojo, go, as opposed to the second time he dies, which is because he could let it go. Even though he never achieved what he wanted, he never destroyed the Zenin clan, he never even truly won against Gojo, he's okay with it, because he has proof that he did something good with his life standing right in front of him. I often see Toji mischaracterized as something of a mindless killer with no regard for any other human, and while yeah, he is pretty brutal, I think this way of thinking comes from the fact that the anime didn't include the fact about Mamaguro. While Toji is certainly evil, he still wanted what's best for Megumi. He sold him, partially for money, but also because he thought that it would be what's best for his son. He wasn't fit to be a father, and I don't think he really wanted Megumi to know what his father was like. I believe that's the reason he didn't tell Megumi who he was when they met. And that final encounter with Megumi was all he needed to understand that his place in the world was set. He dies smiling, knowing that his life didn't amount to nothing but anger and killing. He dies smiling because Megumi will never know who he is. He'll never know the pain his father caused. He dies smiling because the last thing he sees is his son, who carries the name of his lovely mother instead of his father's brutal family. He dies smiling because he finally did what he couldn't with Gojo. He left it all behind. And I know there are technically a few more mentions of Toji in the manga, but this is all the important stuff. I think Toji is an excellently written character, and I made this video because I feel like he's often characterized only for the fact that he's really cool. I was also thinking of making a video about Gojo, but unfortunately that would need manga spoilers, so let me know if that's something you'd want to see. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.